Hey, what's up? In this episode, we're going to play around with Eleventy and the Strava API today. I have on this website, I'm using Eleventy and some like little JavaScript that runs on Netlify to fetch data from YouTube to show recent videos. I fetch data from transistor.fm, which is where I host podcasts, and that's those podcast episodes. This is just the normal blogs. There's no API for that. And then I'm using the Goodreads API to fetch in the recently read books. We've covered some of these APIs in previous episodes. There's also another like sort of hidden section of my site called /squares. And this is just like visualizing different metrics that I care about and I'm thinking about. So this year for 2021, one of my goals was to publish 3 episodes per week on YouTube. This data is actually a little out of date, and the way that it works is every time I publish to Netlify, the JavaScript runs and makes an API call, and then like uses the JSON that was returned and just stores that JSON, and then it's static JSON until I publish again or until I deploy again. I don't really need to be hitting the API all that often, and if I want to refresh the metrics, I just redeploy the site. And so what I wanted to do today was something I've been doing a lot lately is going on these bike rides, and so I wanted to pull in rides from Strava, and it turns out that Strava does have an API, and so I thought it would be fun to go through the process of setting up a little script inside of Eleventy to fetch the rides from Strava. I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we can also just do like kind of a quick review of the Strava API in general and just like get a sense for it here. So we've got API documentation. We've got a getting started guide, creating and managing your app, exploring the playground. I think Strava's API is like a lot of the docs and everything are Swagger based here. So it's using this swagger.json to generate like this sort of API ref here. I tried using this authorize flow on this like Swagger playground for the API ref, and it didn't work. So I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I could not get it to auth, and it was giving me an error or something about the redirect URL. Anyways, we can take a look at the API documentation here, and you'll see that on the top left, typically what I expect to see here is authentication, pagination, how do we do versioning, how do we do retries, idempotency, those kinds of things. For Strava, it just jumps right into the API reference. And then here at the top, it says you can find more information about the API here, so we can like go into that. And then it says all requests to Strava require authentication. So we're going to need to look at how authentication works. Strava uses Oauth to generate access tokens. So it's using Oauth 2 with the new version of their API. They're on v3. So you can register a new application. You have to be logged in. So let me log into Strava. Okay, so on the Strava dashboard, I think you can go to like settings. Maybe it's settings/API. I don't actually know how to click around to get there. And here you can create an API application. I created this a really long time ago and I never got around to like actually using it. But here you'll see your client ID, your client secret, access token, and refresh token. So this is sort of the tokens that you'll need. What I'm gonna do is while we're here, I'm gonna copy these IDs into my .env file. So this is again, this is an Eleventy like sort of blog static site generator. So I'm going to blur this part out, but I'm going to add some keys in here for Strava. So I'm going to say my Strava client ID is this. Then my client secret is this. Strava client secret is this. And then I think what I'm going to need to do is generate these Oauth tokens because they expire within 24 hours. So this access token like isn't going to matter. The refresh token I don't think is going to matter because we need to go through that auth flow, and we'll talk about how we do that Oauth flow here. So now that I've got these keys stored, I'm going to close that out and clear this. Okay, so all right. So what I want to do now is go back to this Oauth flow, and we can talk about this Oauth flow. So we've got a client ID, we've got a client secret. Generally, you also need like a redirect URI. So this is the Oauth overview. If you've never done Oauth before, it can be pretty confusing, but there's a lot of tools and libraries out there for helping work with Oauth. what I wanted to do today was kind of go through the flow step by step manually, just kind of poking around in the browser until we can figure out what the process is. So generally, you start by making a request with some data to the third party that you want to authenticate with. So in this case, Strava is the third party. So we're going to make a GET request to Strava on their website. And if you've ever logged in with Facebook login or Twitter login or GitHub login, this is all going to work very similarly, right? When you say like log in with GitHub, log in with Twitter. Generally, if you're not logged into Twitter or you've never connected to Twitter before, then you're going to be brought to that third party's website. So that is the GET request. And that GET request is composed of a number of different arguments. So if we look down here, details about requesting access. So there's a client ID. That's the client ID we got from Strava. The redirect URI is where to redirect the user to after they successfully authenticate. So if I say connect to Strava, it's going to bring me to Strava first. And then if on Strava I say approved, then this is the redirect URI that I should go to after I've approved. So this is kind of like our own site. Inside of the Strava developer settings here, you can specify an authorization callback domain. This is how you sort of add something to an allow list that says when people connect to my application, they're allowed to redirect to this domain. So cjav.dev, that's kind of like this site here. So I've added cjav.dev as the domain that you're allowed to redirect to. When I specify a redirect URI, it can either be localhost, localhost again as an IP address, or that domain that we have added to the allow list here. All right, we also need to add a response type. In this case, we're going to pass in code. And then I don't know what this approval prompt thing, I've never seen this. I'm not sure what this is for, force or auto. Always show the thing. Okay, so when you get to Strava, like when we say connect to Strava, there's going to be a UI that says, do you want to allow this other application to access these different scopes? And if you say auto, I think if you've already agreed to those scopes, then it'll just skip that and redirect. If you say force, then you'll always be shown that UI where you have to go through and say, yes, I totally approve that this person or this app can read all or whatever. Finally, you can pass in a state. This is like your own personal thing. If you wanted to pass in a state variable that was like, this person is logging in from the mobile app, or this person is logging in from the desktop client, or they're logging in from the website or whatever, you could pass some state variable in order to know once the user is redirected to the redirect URI, where to forward them on. Like potentially you could make this some deep link or something. They tried to access something, they weren't allowed, they needed to authenticate. So they say connect or like log in with Strava. And that state variable would be like where they were headed in the first place. Maybe they were going to like some specific blog post or something. Hopefully this is not getting too muddy. Anyways, we need the client ID. So in the URL here, we're going to construct a URL that is going to strava.com/oauth/authorize. Okay, so this is going to be the URL that we're going to construct. And what I think makes the most sense out of the gate is to just pass this. How should we do this? Let's build a link. Yeah, let's build it so that it's a link on this page so that when you click on the link, it constructs this URL for you. So let's go over to squares.markdown. I'm going to add another one here at the very bottom. It's going to be Strava. And then I'm going to add a link here, ahref, and it's going to go to that URL, and it's just going to say like connect. Okay, and then I need to start this up. npm. Oh gosh, I forgot how we do this. Let's see. Oh, it's also, yeah, so npm run dev. Here we go. Okay, so that should fire up my local instance of this. Maybe. Okay, cool. Here's the UI. Nope, that's the browser sync UI. Here's the actual UI. There we go. All right, so this is like my localhost version of the website /squares. And then at the bottom here, we should have a new section, Strava, and it has this link connect. right? And initially I just dumped in that URL because this is the basic URL that we want to start with. Now we need to pass in some query string parameters. The first one is the client ID. This is the Android version, so I'm going to try to go down here and follow this instruction. So we need the client ID, we need the redirect URI, we need the response type, and that's always going to be code, and we need the approval prompt. Its default is auto, that's what I want. Scope, I think we're going to want, so scope is generally like a comma separated list of different scopes. A scope is like what permissions this this access token will have access to after it's like finished authenticating. So read all, private routes, private segments, private user. Yeah, sure. So we want like read all, I think. And we also want, I think, activity read all, because we want to be able to see all the, I think the activity, like I think a bike ride is considered an activity in here. Okay, and so then here for the client ID, I think I'm just gonna put the client ID directly in there because it's not secret or private or anything. I'm just gonna copy and paste that in there. And then the redirect URI, let's have it come back to squares. So let's make this, initially we'll make it localhost 80, what is it? 8080/squares. And this, like in development, this should be squares, but in production it should be something different. Whatever, we're just kind of like getting started here. So let's say connect. Great, so that brings us to Strava. That is the GET request to go to Strava. Next step here is that we're gonna click authorize, and that's gonna redirect us back to the redirect URL, right? So we came back to the redirect URL, that's here. I don't know why this site like just exploded or crashed. Maybe it needs like a slash here or something, whatever. Okay, this site, oh, because I used HTTPS. It's not S, it's just HTTP, that's fine. Okay, but you'll notice that in the URL we have the state. We didn't pass a state, so it doesn't really matter, but you could optionally pass a state if you wanted. And then we get back this code. Now, the code is not our access token. The code is like a temporary one-time thing that we need to exchange. And this exchange needs to happen with our secret key. So this needs to happen with our secret key. So in order to show you what this looks like, I think what I want to do is, let's go to curl. Let's make a curl request. We're going to say curl -x post. So this always happens on the server. It's going to be a post request. And let's actually say export code is equal to that code that we just got from the URL. And we need to make a post request. And this one is going to use our client secret property that we got here that's hidden. Okay, so this is going to use the client secret property to make, I think, a post request. Let's go back to the docs. All right, so we've already got our code. At the end of our access request, we have a code. Now we need to do that token exchange. And so in order to do the token exchange, we have to pass the client ID, the client secret, the code we just got, and the grant type. And the grant type here is always going to be authorization code. We want to make a post request to this URL. We want to pass our client ID, and that's going to be this client ID again, right? And then we want to pass client secret, and I just put this in an environment variable called Strava client secret, but you'll want to replace that with your actual client secret that's visible in the dashboard there. And then we need to pass the code. The code is going to be code. We just got that from the URL. Recall that like when we were redirected back, we got this code. And then finally, we need to pass a grant type. Grant type is going to be authorization code, I believe. Command not found URL. Ah, this is curl. Okay, so this has a bunch of juicy details, including an access token here. That access token, it has my name, it has like where I'm based, it has the picture, it has a bunch of stuff about the athlete, and it came back with in this access token, which is going to expire in just a little bit. So because it's going to expire, I don't actually care about exposing the access token. As long as you don't see my client secret, you're good. You're good to go. So we do have this refresh token, which we'll probably need to refresh it because this token expires so frequently. Like because this is like, so if we grab this date time and we say df, yeah, so this is going to expire in whatever, this many seconds. So like it's basically tomorrow. So we want to use this access token to make our API call. So now we have an access token. That's the whole flow for getting an access token. So if we were to go into one of these activities, I think maybe like get an activity. No, because we don't have any IDs for activities. We want to list activities. List athlete activities. Here we go. /athlete/activity. So this is going to be like the URL that we want to send the request to. We say curl this thing. Oh no, I lost my access token. All right, so I'm just going to say export token is equal to this thing. So this is the API call that we want to make. If you don't pass any headers or anything, you'll get this this error that says we didn't pass the access token field. So in order to pass that access token, we're going to need to use bearer authentication or token authentication. So we say authorization is the header key, and then we say bearer, and then we want to pass our token here. So token. I think that might work. I don't know. We'll see. Boom. Look at that. We got some data back. Fantastic. I'm going to pipe this into JQ just so that we can see it a little better. Nice. Very cool. Okay. Sweet. So yeah, these are all of my activities that are piped into Strava. Again, like you can connect your Peloton bike to Strava. So I've been super into these Power Zone rides lately. And I actually I did one not too long ago. And so here is an example of a 60-minute Power Zone ride. It tells the distance. I'm guessing that's in like kilometers, how long you were on the bike. I don't know what that denomination is because it was 60 minutes. So what is this? Is this in seconds or something? What is that divided by 60? There you go. Yeah, so that's how many seconds was on the bike. Gives you your athlete ID. Type is ride. Cool. So that's going to be useful. The workout type. I've also got some other activities in here. Like I've done meditations with the Peloton app too. And so those are going to show up in here. But this, yeah, type workout is not useful because I just want to, my end goal here is to have a calendar of squares below, down here below Strava that shows a dot on a day in the calendar where I did a bike ride. So that's kind of what I care about, is like whether or not I did a bike ride. And so I want that to be colored in if I have done a bike ride on that day. And so what we want to do is use that access token to make this API call to fetch all of the activities that were rides, that were bike rides. So let's see if we can filter by type, activity type. It says before, after, page, per page. Maybe this just gives you like all of the activities and there's no way to filter. Perhaps I can just fetch, I might have to just filter it myself. So that's totally fine too. But at the end of the day, this is the API call that we want to make. And we can do that from JavaScript with 11t. So I'm gonna need to figure out how to like update this environment variable. But for now, whatever, we know that it'll be stored in the environment. So let's take a look at what we've got here for this existing data stuff. So we've got dev and prod. So in prod, we have like a little JavaScript file that will run. And then in dev, we've got some JSON that's just like hard-coded JSON. And so what we want to do is add a new prod JavaScript file called strava.js. And in here, we will make a request to the Strava API. I think Transistor is going to be the closest one because, yeah, I just used the Axios. So yeah, I'm just going to copy all this over. All right, so we've got Axios is a library for making HTTP requests from JavaScript in Node. I think you can use it. Actually, you can use it wherever. That's fine. And then save seed is like a helper file that came with this 11t thing, plugin thing. Save seed is what does the step where it like plops the data, this JSON data, into these JSON files. So we're going to need that. The URL, again, is going to be, so for Strava here, we want to grab this thing. Okay, so that's going to be our URL. And then our request options, the headers, we're going to pass authorization, and then bearer, and then our token, our access token. So this is going to be Strava access token. Okay, and then the function that we're exporting here is going to make a GET request, and then it's going to stringify that data, and then we want to plop it into strava.json. So now, in order to run this, I think there was a tool that came with this whole thing. Let's see, in package.json, the scripts. Oh, here we go, seed. So cross-env in seed, and then it's going to run 11t. So hopefully that will run our thing. Let's see. So npm run seed. Let's see. So this should actually seed all of the different development mode JSON files. So I don't know if any of these API calls are going to fail. We might have to comment some out. So yeah, see, it's fetching the data for Goodreads, for Strava, for Transistor. Okay, cool. So it's got some Strava data. That's awesome. Styles, Uglify.js. Something failed with Uglify.js. Like, I don't know if that matters, but let's take a look at our source, site data for dev. And then here we have our Strava.json. Fantastic. Amazing. Okay, great. So what we want to do now is we want to take that Strava.json data and yep. So let's take a look at that squares page. So squares, it's a markdown file, and down here we just like for the other ones, I'm just like plopping in p tags. And so my target for Strava is at least 3 rides per week. Okay, and then this is going to be called Strava Cal. All right, and then where am I using podcast call or podcast cal? Let's see. Okay, in core.js. So, oh, right. Okay, so in core.js, I've written a little bit of JavaScript that uses this cal heat map thing, and then you can like pass in the data that's used to generate those. So let's make a new one of these, and we'll call it our Strava calendar. And this is going to be Strava, and then right. Okay, so the item name is going to be like ride and rides, I think. All right, whatever, that's fine. So what's interesting here is that these are actually hitting like an API endpoint to fetch the JSON, and I can't remember how that works. So let's see what's going on here. So we've got our posts, we've got our site functions. How does that work? Podcast calendar. Okay, this is in dist. How is that getting into dist? API, and then the data is there. Huh, I actually don't know how that works. So yeah, let's try to figure that out. Oh, here we go. So we've got a couple of 11t.js files here. So we've got our podcast calendar.11t.js. So let's see how this works. So data is returning a permalink. That's just saying like where this thing lives. And then in order to render it, what are we doing? Okay, so data.transistor, this is a tool that comes from 11t, I believe. And that's so that you can just access anything that's in this data directory by saying like data dot and then like the name of the stuff. So in this case, data.transistor should give me back the data that's here in transistor.json. So what I want to do is I want to create a copy of this, and I'm going to say Strava calendar. And this is going to be called Strava calendar. And then the items here is going to be data.strava. And then we need to figure out like how to actually map over it so that we can accumulate the number of rides for a given day. And like, yeah, this published at and everything. So, okay, I think maybe if I go to like localhost now, if I just like drop in and say like API / Strava calendar.json. Okay, cool. So it's giving me back some data. The data is not what I want. So let's say if we just like return json.stringify data.strava.data. And then I think we're gonna have to like clean this up anyway. So let's, oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're getting the data back, but like, is it, I don't know why, like, or when it's refreshing. This is super hard to read though. So let's make the GET request from the terminal and pipe to JQ so that we can take a look. All right, so what we want is we want the date time that it happened at, and we want to collect those into timestamps, right? So like in the podcast calendar, the items that we're returning here are the timestamp and then like the number of episodes that went out on that day. And so we are parsing the published date into an integer date.parse. So if I take this, so the start date, yeah, we'll just use the start date as like the date. And then if we say like date.parse this thing, oops, we do get back a timestamp, and then parse int and divided by 1,000. Yep. Okay. So I think we want to do the same thing or something similar for Strava. So at the very top, there's not like a data property or anything. It's just like straight into the rides or straight into the activities. So I think what we want to do is something like const rides is data.strava dot, let's see. Yeah, I guess we could do filter. Yeah. Ride or like activity. And then the thing we want to filter out on is if strava.json. Where does it say? Oh yeah, so the type. So we want the type to be ride. Activity.type is ride. And I think we can shorten this up to be this. Okay, so that should give us the rides. And then from those rides, we want to map over it and count them based on the day. So we want to say like rides, and then maybe say const like ride counts, and we can say rides dot, I guess we could probably just use this a very similar format here. Rides dot map to, yeah, do we want to destructure and just pull out that one start date? Sure. And then we want to parse int for date.parse of start date and divided by 1,000, 10. We want to parse int here because we want it to be an integer, and if we divide by 1,000, like we might get something weird. So that should map over all the rides and just give us back timestamps. And then we want to reduce those and count by the timestamp. Also, I'm realizing that if we use the timestamp and divide by just 1,000, that's going to give us like down to the second, but I think we want it down to the day. So how do we get down to the day? Let's see here. So divided by 1,000, right? So like this is going to be a Unix timestamp of, yeah, so it's down to like 10, 45, 52. So how should we do this? Date.parse dot, I'm like wondering if there's a way we can divide by like more than 1,000. So 1,000 gives us the seconds, and then if we divide by 60, that gives us the minutes. If we divide by 60 again, that gives us the hours. If we divide by 24, that gives us the days. And then if we times by, then if we like clean this whole thing up and multiply by 60 times 60 times, there's got to be a way better way to do this. All right. Oh, we get the same thing back. All right, great. So that's not going to work. So what is this? What does this actually give us? Right. Okay, so we want to parse int of this, parse int, and then we want to multiply that by like 60 times 24. I'm trying to like just remove the other part. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that gives you 0, 0, 0, 0. There's got to be a much better way to do this in JavaScript though, right? So let's try to figure that out. Const d equals date.parse of this thing. Is this just going to give me back an integer too, right? Like d. So that's just a number. So date.new of d. New date of d. Gosh. Switching between Ruby and whatever. May 24th. Is that right? Yeah, that is May 24th. Okay. So then, yes, so this was May 24th. That's right. That's totally right. So this is the same day. That's great. So now what we want to do is all right, so we're going to map over and we should get that back. And then we want to reduce down to some accumulator and timestamp. The whole reason is that we're doing this like fancy thing is that we want to count the rides of that day. And I'm not sure how to do it in an easier way. So it's all good. So we also want to set our initial value. So reduce is a way that we can like collect up values. So at the end of this map statement, right? So rides.map, at the end of this statement, we're getting back an array of timestamps that are going to be day timestamps. So in fact, like let's do that. So we'll call this like ride days, ride days. And then here we'll say const ride counts. So ride days is going to be an array. Ride days is an array of timestamps, and some of them are going to be duplicate timestamps. And we want to count all those duplicates up and the resulting object to be an object or a hash map or whatever, where the key is the date and the value is the number of rides for that day. And so we're gonna use reduce, which takes in it takes a function as an argument, as the first argument, and then as the second argument, it's a potential initial value for what's called the accumulator. So we're going to use this accumulator to count up the days. The timestamp is going to be each individual timestamp that's in the array of days, and then we have an opportunity to modify accumulator and return it. So we're going to say like if there is a timestamp in the accumulator at that day, then we want to increase the value there. So we're going to say ACC at timestamp plus equals 1, and then otherwise we're going to set it equal to 1. So if the hash, right? Okay, so here we go. We're going to say, let's also clean all this up. And we're going to return JSON.stringify of ride counts. All right, so this is going to be a hash, the hash here. And what we're doing is we are collecting up all of those dates and we're adding them up. So the very first thing we're saying is like, does this hash have this timestamp in it? If it does, then increase it. If it does not already have that timestamp, then set it equal to 1 because we found at least one ride for that day. And then go to the next timestamp. And if that timestamp is there, because maybe it's the second ride for that day, we're going to increase the number from 1 to 2. Otherwise, if this is a new date that we've never seen before, then we're going to set that equal to 1, and then we're going to return the accumulator at the end. And something seems off here. I'm missing an arrow there. Okay. So hopefully this makes sense. So we've got rides, I think. Let's console.log rides. This is a little trick here. If you pass just rides, that'll console log it and print it out. Oftentimes I'll say like rides with the string value as the first argument to console log, and the second argument is the thing I'm printing out. But another like little hacky trick is if you wrap it in curly braces, then that's creating an object with the key being rides and the value being whatever the value of rides is. So that's like a nice little handy trick for printing stuff out. So let's say ride days, and then we'll also say ride counts, and we'll see what we get. Let's just check it out. So if we, oh gosh, all right, something's crashing. Okay. In order for that to work, start date, I need to wrap this thing in parens. Oops. Maybe? Cool. Okay. So is this actually a date time? I think that's too big. Yep, so we're off by something. We are off by 1,000. So I think this one needs to be divided by 1,000. We lost that. So let's refresh. There we go. So now is this a date? That is. So that's the 27th. There was two rides on the 27th. 2 rides on the 28th. 1 ride on the 30th. 2 rides on the 1st. So that's actually looking pretty good. I'm a little disappointed at how many results there are here. So let's take a look and see if we can work with the Strava API. The other thing too is that like I'm saving all the data. Actually, let's go take a look and see if this is like working out of the gate here for the squares thing. If we go to the bottom, hey, check it out. That's super cool. So it's already coloring in the days that I rode. The darker color is like more rides and the lighter color is fewer rides. You'll notice that it's only like this chunk though. So it's missing all the data from before. And so what I think might be interesting is trying to figure out pagination. So let's go and see. The other thing that's on my mind is that like we technically are storing like all the data back from Strava, right? Like we've got all this ride data here, but I don't actually need all of this stuff. I only need the rides and I only need the timestamps for the rides. But whatever, for now, we'll just keep it like that. So if we go back to Strava.js, we need to modify this query string so that we can try to fetch several. The other thing that's on my mind is maybe we want to do this inside of this function. Like maybe we make like several calls to paginate over the list. So if we go very up to the very beginning here, or no, list athlete activities, we've got a per page, defaults to 30. Let's see if we can just mess around with this and say like per page is 100. And then, yeah, page number defaults to 1. So let's actually, yeah, let's see if we can just do this sort of in the console or in the terminal here to get the pagination right before we try to implement it elsewhere. So we want to give this thing a per page of 100. So that access token invalid. Huh? No way. Let's just see here. Okay, it's taking longer. That's positive. So did we actually get 100 back? That's the question. So JQ, if we do like square brackets dot start date, I think that should give us back just the start dates. No? Dot square bracket dot start date maybe. Okay. And then does this look like 100 to you? All right, so now what I want to do is pipe that into word count -L. So that's going to give me the line count. So how many did we get back? Oh, we actually did get 100 back. Okay, so that's fantastic. All right, can we do more than 100? Can we do like, let's do 200. Let's see if we get 200 back. 200, wow, okay, how about 300? Or let's see, what's the limit here? Let's try 1,000. 1,000 activities, we get 0 back. 500, we'll sort of binary search our way into the limit. Let's see, 250. All right. 200. All right, for 200, we still get 200 back. I'm trying to think if I'm definitely going to do more than 200 rides some years. So we'll need to paginate. So let's set our per page to 200, and then down here we will say, oh gosh, what do we want to do? Like, where do we want the pagination to end? Maybe we just make like 2 requests. I think that's probably fine. Let's say like page 1. Actually, yeah, like what is the best way to do this? Because technically we only need like 365 days of data before an epic timestamp to use for filtering activities that have taken place before a certain time or after a certain time. So after, if we say after 365 days ago, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. That's probably the right way to go. So what is the timestamp for 365 days ago? We're doing a lot of JavaScript date stuff here. So let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can figure this out. So const d is new date. That should be today. D dot set year to like d dot get year -1. D. That didn't work. D dot year. Oh, get full year. D dot get year. Come on. Const d, no, let d2 equal new date. D2 dot get year. 121, that's so weird. Holy smokes. Okay, so get full year. 2021, there we go. And then D2 dot set year, set full year, there we go. D2 dot get full year -1. And D2. All right, so that is last year. That is today, last year. So I think that might, but this is not an epic time. JavaScript date to epic time. Holy moly. Get time divided by 1,000. All right, let's try that. Get time divided by 1,000. All right, so cool, whatever. Divided by 1,000. Phew. All right. So we want this to be after, and after is equal to, what is that? Last year stamp. Last year stamp. All right. And then what I think we want to do is we want to like keep looping and making GET requests until the page returns no results. So let's also just try this out with this timestamp in the terminal. I like to try to limit all of the moving parts while I'm testing. And so this is one of the ways that you can do that is like by just experimenting with the API call directly in the terminal with curl or with Postman or with whatever to verify your assumptions before you get too down in the weeds. And then Yep. So let's just take a look. I'm just going to print out the start dates now. So here we go. 2020-09, 07-6. That's kind of weird, right? Because I would expect. Okay, are they going to be in order? Yes, they're going to be in order. This is the first one from last year. And then if I go to like page 2, so and page equals 2, is that going to go to, it's going to start on 9/27 maybe or something? Let's see. Okay, yeah, so it starts on 9/27-ish and keeps going forward. And then page 3, whoops. Oh gosh. I guess my graph is only really showing since the beginning of this year. So maybe it makes sense just to go to the beginning of, whatever, it's fine. Okay, so cool, that'll work. Let's just do that. So then instead of just fetching twice, oh wait, we need to find where the end is here, huh? Page 4 is going to have some, so page 5 should probably be empty. Yep, so we get no results back. What do we actually get though? An empty object? Empty list. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to loop until we get an empty array back. Okay, and so how do we want to do that? I think what we want to do is just I wonder if we can use, yeah, let's make a little function here. Fetch const fetch page is a function that's going to take in the page, and it's going to return this thing, and that's going to be it's going to be the URL plus the page number, and page equals page with those request options, and then we're just going to return this. No, we're going to return response.data, and we're going to say like, oh, this is going to be async also. So I wonder if we can use a while loop. I don't even know. So we'll say like const page, or like let page equal fetch page 1, and then we'll say like if we need an ID too. Let page ID or page num equal 1. Oh gosh, page num. We're gonna fetch the page, and then while page does not equal empty array, we want to keep fetching. I have not implemented pagination in JavaScript in a long time. I always do this stuff in Ruby or Python or whatever. So let's see. All right, so we're gonna have a page number. While the page doesn't equal 0, we want to keep fetching pages, and we also want to merge them into like results. So const results is going to be some empty array initially, and so we're going to say, or actually, I guess the results can start off with as the page. And then we want to say page equals fetch page with page num plus equals 1. And then results dot concat page. I don't remember if this actually changes it. So if concat, so A is array, 1, 2, 3, A dot concat like 4, 5, 6. That definitely returns a new array, but does that change A? It does not. So we want to say results equals results.concat. That means we can't make this const, we have to make it let. All right, so I don't know, maybe that'll work. We'll see. This should also be await, and this should be await, right? Because those are going to be async functions. There's definitely a better way to do this, but this should work for now. And then we want to JSON.stringify results. And plop that into Strava. Now this I think is going to take a few seconds because in order to fetch, I guess 200 per page, 5 pages, that is 1,000 activities. It's going to take a minute, right? Or a little while. So another thing that might be nice to do here is to say console.log fetching Strava page, whatever, page num, so that we can just see. All right, let's take a look at what that looks like. So npm run seed. The one I expected, yeah, so here we go. Fetching Strava page 2, fetching Strava page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh God, oh God. Ah! Okay, too many pages, too many pages. Die, die. All right, so what did we do? Strava.js. Okay, so while page does not equal, so this, yeah, this actually, yeah, this is wrong. Because we were comparing with another array, and array equality doesn't work like that in JavaScript. So like this does not equal this. Yep, false. So instead we do like dot length is greater than 0. And that is better, I think. We'll see. All right, so we expect it to stop after like page 5 or 6. And you'll notice that like these other pages, as it was fetching it, was going way faster because when it fetches and says like, give me 200 results after page 24, there is no page 24. So it just like quickly, the API responds really quickly because there's no data to send back. So we're fetching page 2, page 3, page 4. These are a little slower. Then we crash, response is not defined because we are trying to use response somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go. Results. All right, so we're pretty close. We're pretty close to having something here. So, while that's going, I'm kind of curious how this is looking here. Ah, look at that, sick. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Look at that, those are my rides. Look at my activity, so much activity. That's amazing, I love it. Cool, we stopped after page 5, so sick. Oh, I love it. Okay, this is pretty sweet. This connect link thing is sort of annoying, but I think we have to deal with it because of OAuth stuff. And yeah, I should probably automate the process for making the post request with the client secret and such so that we can get back that token and then make the API call with the token. But for now, this is fine. All right, I think I'm gonna stop it there. I am gonna deploy it up to Netlify, but hopefully this was useful. I know it ran a little long. Thanks so much for your time and attention, really appreciate it. Hopefully this was, yeah, kind of juicy getting into the Strava API. If you're curious about playing around with it, the docs are a little light for the authentication piece. So I don't know, maybe this will help. And yep, otherwise, I hope you're having an awesome day and we'll see you next time.